Hey there, good morning. Well, afternoon if you're watching it, or even evening, right? I'm Bernie Miklasz. Welcome to the Bernie Miklasz Show here on my YouTube channel. Thank you very much for the support. We're cruising in on 7,000 subscriptions. The number of views just continues to grow and grow and grow. And I am very gratified. So thank you very much. Please leave a comment. Please hit the like button, and we'll continue to talk a lot of Cardinals baseball because that's where the most interest is. And that's kind of, I go to where the audience is and what the audience wants, but we'll be mixing in some other things. Today, what I'd like to talk about is this. Recently, I've been getting asked the question a lot, and I know a lot of you have been thinking about this, maybe a lot. And I know a lot of my friends in the media have been talking about this. So I want to take a stab at it. So you're probably wondering, okay, well, what is it? All right, here's the deal. The premise, and it's just the premise, that the Cardinals might be better in 2025 than we expect. Better as in making the playoffs, not saying that, not suggesting it. Better as in, wow, they're a sleeper team. They could get into playoffs. They could create a ruckus. No, not saying that. The problem with this is, like, I don't know what would be considered a reasonable expectation. And one of the reasons is an obvious reason is because, it's November the 11th. We're not even at Thanksgiving yet, let alone Christmas. Spring training still seems like a long time away. And the Cardinals don't have their ball club in place. I mean, I like talking about these things. It's harmless. It's fun, actually. But until we know who exactly is no longer going to be here, in addition to the people we already know are gone from the Cardinals, and we don't know who they still might trade. There's a couple of possibilities. We don't know if, when they make a trade or two, let's just say Ryan Helsley, for example, what do they get back in that? Is it would it be anyone who would help the team in 2025? I'm talking about a young up and coming player that is ready to play in the major leagues or pitch in the major leagues, but hasn't gotten the opportunity yet. So again, there's just a lot of things we just simply don't know. So I'm not going to say we're operating in the dark, but we're operating with not all the information that we really will need to try to determine what the ceiling is for the 2025 Cardinals or what the floor is for the 2025 Cardinals. Now, some of you might say, well, I don't really care. It's a rebuilding year. It's a retooling year. It's a reset year. So I'm not expecting much. And that's kind of where I am. My philosophy on this is pretty simple. This is long overdue. This necessity to go back to what their strengths should be as a baseball operation, which is, of course, have a much better player development system in terms of developing players and maximizing their chances to be good in the big leagues right away. And I'm talking about giving them all the tools and the resources, whether it be technology, facilities, instructors, coaching. The Cardinals, as we've talked about, and we've talked about it a million times, they've fallen way behind the curve, and it's really affecting things because they're not getting enough good players on a consistent basis, players and pitchers to the major league level, and that's really shown up on the pitching side for sure. So Chaim Bloom's going to do his thing. He's doing his thing already, and he's hiring people, and he's already taken stock of the minor league situation. But he and the new farm director are going to be Rob Serfilio. Will be getting that thing shored up. I think rather more sooner than later. But just for fun, the idea that the Cardinals might be either, if you want to choose, better than expected, or B, the second choice would be Uh, they're not going to stink as much as we think. It's kind of one and the same, but anyway, you can prefer to characterize it any way you'd like. So, what is this based on? Maybe this little glimmer, I should say, little glimmer of optimism. What is this based on exactly? Well, Wilson Contreras is staying, and it appears that Sonny Gray is staying, and Nolan Arenado is a maybe as far as staying or being traded. Miles Michaelis and Steven Matz are to be determined. And before any of you get ready to write nasty things in the comments section, I'm not saying Michaelis and Matz. It's like, it's really good. If they stay, that's really good. That's going to help the Cardinals. Although Michaelis over the last couple of years, it's very hard to explain. I'm not defending him, but I'm looking at his and we understand where the Cardinals are. They are in a transition. He's got 1 year left on his contract. And if you look at the last 2 years, Michaelis is like 19th among major league starters and wins above replacement. He's 10th in innings pitched. His fielding independent ERA is in the top 25. He just doesn't miss many bats, and it leaves him vulnerable to batted ball luck and all that other stuff. Now, again, I'm not proclaiming greatness here. I'm just saying he does serve a purpose because the rotation could be still on the thin side. And it ain't the worst thing in the world to pay Miles Michaelis for his innings for 2025, not beyond that. Because when they become a better team and they become a team that's got a chance to make the playoffs, and that could be in 2026, right? No, you got to do better than Miles Michaelis. I'm talking about serving an important function on a team that is either rebuilding or resetting or just starting over, not totally over. This isn't a blow up, but they're weeding out some things. They're not going to be aggressive about bringing in some players. So given the circumstances of 2025, Miles Michaelis pitching a lot of innings, and it's interesting. He gets more quality starts than just about any of them. So I'm just saying it ain't the end of the world. Do I want him? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you got to put it in context to where the Cardinals are going into 2025. Steven Matz, I have no idea. I would think that they could peddle him because it's $12 million left on a contract and then it's over. Some team might want to take a flyer for one season. Who knows? That's what I mean. We don't know. That's the point. So what would be the basis for optimism other than mild optimism, other than Contreras staying and Gray staying? And you're still going to be able to put together an okay rotation, maybe an average rotation, because you have Sonny Gray back. And yeah, I know Sonny Gray's problem was home runs on the road. And I got to believe that his home run rate will calm down next season because it was just such an outlier. And it was nothing like that in his past. And yeah, outlier seasons happen, and they happen to good hitters and they happen to good pitchers. But if you look at Sonny Gray overall, he was 13th among major league starters last season in wins above replacement. He had the 7th best fielding independent ERA among starting pitchers, and he was tied with the 2nd best strikeout rate among starting pitchers. The only guy with a higher strikeout rate is Chris Sale, who's going to be winning the National League Cy Young Award. Sonny Gray was good last year. He was disappointing in the way the season kind of turned on him. Again, I'm not proclaiming him to be anything extraordinary or even the ideal number one starter. But I think we've seen some overreaction and people making him sound worse than he is. If that home run rate stabilizes, you just look at his fielding independent ERA, and there's a lot there to like, and there's a lot there to look forward to. Is he worth the money going forward? For the purposes of this discussion, it has nothing to do with it. If the Cardinals want him to stay, he's going to stay. That's a separate issue. And one problem I have is veering off on these detours that get off the subject of what I'm talking about. So I don't want to do that today. The debate over Sonny Gray, whether he'll be worth it the next 2 years, whether they should trade him because of what's owed to him the next 2 seasons. Okay. I get that you may be thinking that. I'm just saying it's irrelevant to this specific topic because by all indications, he wants to stay and plans to stay. So we'll see if that changes. Once again, we don't know for sure. We'll know as the team's about to go to spring training what's up, right? So you look at the rest of the rotation. I know it became very fashionable to look at Nick Fetty and say, well, he's nothing special. Listen, I used the verbiage I used with Nick Fetty was kind of like, he's not exactly overwhelming, is he? Right. And I think that's fair. But if you look at Nick Fetty's full season, what he did with the White Sox, and you look at the way he finished up with the Cardinals, I mean, let's not act like he's Miles Michaelis or something. Okay. Let's not go too far in saying we weren't as impressed as we hoped to be. That's fair to say that. But some people always want to take it to the extreme where you would think he's a fringe major league starter or something. So Eric Fetty last year, if you add in the White Sox and the Cardinals, you put them together, he doesn't have much to apologize for, if anything. His ERA was 3.30, and that was 17th best among major league starting pitchers. And when you consider the sheer number of major league starting pitchers, if you're in the top 20, even if you're in the top 30, even to an extent, if you're in the top 40, it's really good. Each team's got 5 starters. 5 times 30 is 150. And then you're adding some other starters that'll work in, and they won't be maybe starting all the time, but they'll be starting quite a bit. So, if you're sitting there with the 17th best ERA, that's a lot better than people want to give him credit for. And I don't understand it. I mean, again, it's not like there's 50 starting pitchers in Major League Baseball, right? There's 150. And so when you're in the top 20, I think you're a good pitcher if you pitch to that ERA. And he was also just outside the top 30 in fielding independent ERA. And he was also Eric Fetty, was 28th in innings pitched. So, I mean, all in all, and then if you look at his final 7 starts as a Cardinal, he had a 2.95 ERA. He settled in. He got his confidence. He pitched better. There was a phase-in period. Probably it took him a little time. Then even he was disappointed that he didn't start pitching better right away. But I think he'll be better coming out of the gate in 2025. And listen, he's got 1 year left. Now, there's always a chance that he could be traded. If somebody makes him an offer that they can't turn down, knowing that this is going to be his walk year. So that is another wild card factor, X factor, whatever you want to call it. I'm thinking Fetty will be here, but I can't sit here and say for sure, right? Because teams are always looking for pitching, and the Cardinals have a little bit of pitching to offer. Well, what about the offense? Let me go back to something. I'm sorry, I didn't finish starting pitching. Andre Pallante moved into the starting rotation last year, May 29th, right? I keep reading in some of the accounts, it's just like, well, after the All-Star break, he did this. And it's one of those things that shouldn't bother me, but it does a little bit. He moved into the rotation on May the 29th. He didn't move into the rotation on July 21st, okay? Pallante pretty much from the beginning established himself as a guy that had a chance to be a pretty good starter, and then as time went on and on and on, it's like, well, wait a minute. He's been really good for them. Looks like he's a starting pitcher for next season. He had the best starting pitching ERA on the team after he moved into the rotation, not on July 21st after the All-Star break, but on May the 29th. So you have Pallante. Again, Michaelis, Matz, I don't know. I don't know what the situation's going to be. There's no need to talk more about them, although Matz could be in the bullpen if they need him. You got Michael McGreevy is going to get a look for sure. You got Quinn Matthews at some point in 2025, their top pitching prospect. He'll be up here. They just need to get him some more starts at AAA. So there's at least something to work with there. And, there's always a chance at Tink Hence. There's always a chance of another starter or two coming out of the system, maybe surprising us by getting here a little early. Again, there's a lot of variables here. We don't have a set roster yet for us to study. The offense was the weakest part of the team last season. Mason Wynn is a star. He'll be back, and he leads the pack as far as I'm concerned in terms of good players. Nolan Arenado, again, don't know. Don't know. We'll wait and see. Third base could be open. If it's open, maybe this is the opportunity to get Nolan Gorman settled in and get his confidence going. And if we're talking about a team in 2025 that's going to surprise at all, part of that formula is going to have to be Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman starting to hit the way they're capable of hitting. And I think the new hitting coach, Brant Brown, can help them. He's got fresh eyes, fresh vision, a fresh set of ideas, a little bit different teaching style. And I continue to, frankly, laugh at all these people that act like they hired some guy, they picked him up like on a street corner and made him their hitting coach. And I'm not saying he's reinventing, I'm not saying he's, to use the old school reference, Charlie Lau. But Brant Brown, as I mentioned before, he worked 5 years for the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're an incredibly smart organization. They kept him in-house for 5 years in a variety of roles in terms of hitting instruction. And the only reason he went to the Miami Marlins is because he can make a lot more money being the hitting coach. And in 2023, when the Marlins got to the playoffs, they were a huge surprise. Skip Schumacher was the manager. Brant Brown took where the Marlins were the year before and moved them way up in the rankings. Now, their overall offense wasn't good, but that wasn't his fault because you only got so much to work with. But he made the offense better with what he had compared to the year before. And so for those of you who, I don't know if there's anybody out there, I think it's okay to take a wait and see approach on Brant Brown, but I wouldn't declare him a failure before he's even gone to work. And if you, I think I've mentioned this, but I've mentioned it in passing. I'm going to mention it again. So if you think this was a lousy or uninspiring hitting coach hire, okay, if that's kind of where you are, I wish you could talk to Albert Pujols about this, because Albert Pujols credits Brant Brown for getting his hitting turnaround late in his career. He got traded from the Angels, where he had bottomed out as a hitter. I mean, seriously, it was like almost sad to watch. He went to the Dodgers. Brant Brown, by the way, told 101 ESPN this in an interview that was really good. You can probably find it if you go look for it. Pujols came, when Pujols was traded to the Dodgers late in the deadline, around then in 2021. Pujols said went to Brant Brown and said, "Well, I think I can do better, but what do you recommend? What should I work on?" And Brant Brown told him, he said, "Well, we're going to treat you like you're just a normal hitter, like you're a guy that needs help. We're not going to treat you like you're the legend that is Albert Pujols." And he didn't mean that they wouldn't show him respect. He just meant, this guy's one of the short list greatest hitters of all time, but he's at the end of the line. And the stuff he did to make himself one of the great hitters of all time is really no longer relevant, because as you get older, things change and you got to adapt and you got to maybe work on some other things. So he told Pujols, said, we're going to evaluate you like we would any other hitter on this team, proven guys, unproven guys, marginal guys, whatever. So they came up with a plan. And the first thing that Brant Brown told him, he said, "You work a lot on your strength, right?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm really all off season. I lift a lot of weights. I work on my strength." And Brant Brown said, "No, you don't do that. You need to lose weight, because at this point in your career, you're plenty strong enough. You need to be more limber in the box. You have to be more, what's the word here? You have to be more flexible in the box. You got to be quicker. You'll speed up your bat. You'll just have better movement with your hands. Your legs will feel better if they're lighter and you're not carrying around this extra weight." And Pujols got to work on it in the offseason before he joined the Cardinals, and he did lose weight. And we know that he started off slowly in 2022, but a lot of that, I think, just had to do with confidence and maybe trying too hard early on. Albert Pujols, the way he finished his career in 2022 was absolutely amazing. And it was a beautiful thing to watch. And Albert Pujols credits Brant Brown for resetting him as a hitter. And Albert Pujols called Skip Schumacher, and I believe he called John Mozeliak or texted him, whatever. And he highly recommended that they hire Brant Brown. So if you hear your neighbor Larry or one of your buds going off on what a stupid hire this was, Albert Pujols would like to have a word with you on that one. That's all I'm saying. So I do think there's a chance that Brant Brown can help get Walker and Gorman on track, right? Maybe he's the type of guy that can get Victor Scott continuing down a more positive path after Ryan Ludwig helped him out last year. Can Lars Nootbaar stay healthy? Can Alec Burleson hit well for 6 months instead of 3+ months? That was the case last year. What can you get out of Thomas Saggese? Brennan Donovan's a fine hitter. No problems there. I think that Brant Brown can probably help him. I think he can help a lot of these guys. You're going to have Contreras at first base. You're going to get a lot more at bats from him. He was their best hitter last season. He's been one of the best right-handed hitters in the majors the last 2 years. The more he plays, the more the offense will grow from it. And then if Ivan Herrera is given most of the catching, or certainly a big amount of the catching behind the plate, well, that's your second best hitter last year based on minimum 250 plate appearances. So with Contreras not getting beat up behind the plate, he's going to have a lot more plate appearances. Herrera's going to have a lot more plate appearances. So you got your top two hitters from last year going to play a lot more. So that should work in their favor. And I would expect some of these younger guys to get better and better. But I'm not going to go down the entire, list of position players. But I think you get my point. And Nootbaar being healthy and just staying focused is a huge variable in 2025. So there is some potential growth there, right? Especially if Brant Brown can help these guys. Now I'm going to give you the problem. And it is a problem. It's a problem in the context of can the Cardinals be a surprise? Can they be better than we think? So that's what I mean when I say surprise, because there's this growing sentiment. Hey, they may not be so bad. They may be better. That ain't the goal. The goal is to get into playoffs and start winning postseason games and start making runs and, pennants, World Series, all that stuff. So you don't have to tell me that. I already know it. I just don't feel that. Why do I have to say that every single time I talk about the 2025 Cardinals? The usual standards do not apply. The Cardinals, for once, were transparent and told us what they're doing. And what they're doing is they want to give a fuller opportunity to young pitchers and hitters and see that they can make these guys better and see if they respond to more enlightened coaching and things like that. We know what the ultimate goal is, but the Cardinals aren't in that position in 2025. So I've already wasted just now a minute talking about this. I see no need to talk about that again. Well, Bernie, that's not the goal. The goal is to win the World Series. I know, but not in 2025, right? Thank you. We understand each other, and I'm probably dwelling on this too much. So, yeah, let me give myself a demerit. How do I do that? I don't know. I'll write it down. Demerit. All right, here's the problem in this kind of fantasy version of like, well, the Cardinals could be a lot better than maybe we think, because some of these guys are staying and some of the other guys might bounce back, and there's a couple, 3 good starting pitchers, whatever. Okay. Here's the problem. If the Cardinals trade Ryan Helsley, who's got a year left, arbitration, his final arbitration year, and then he goes into free agency, this is the ideal time to trade him, because he's got high value right now because of the season he had and the fact that anybody acquires him has him at least for a full season. We've gone through this before. Yeah. Could the Cardinals flip him at the All-Star break? Not at the All-Star break. Well, maybe earlier, or flip him at the deadline. Yeah, they can. But as I keep reminding myself, Ryan Helsley's had some injuries. And if the plan is to we can flip him at the deadline. All right. What if he pops an elbow ligament? What if his shoulder, he tears something in there? What if he's going to have to go get surgery? What's his trade value then? And that's always a risk with any reliever that throws 100 miles an hour, right? In fact, a lot of times you can just say it's only a matter of time. So to me, this would be the optimum time to trade Ryan Helsley. But the other thing, I'm going to pair him with another reliever. Andrew Kittredge will not be back. He will not be back, just like Kyle Gibson appears will not be back, and Lance Lynn won't be back. Paul Goldschmidt won't be back. Andrew Kittredge won't be back. They didn't make him a qualifying offer. He's a free agent, and I think he'll be a coveted guy. I don't see any way he's back. And here's the problem with the scenario where the Cardinals could be better than we think, right? That assumes that their bullpen will be as positive and will be as much of a standout and will be as outstanding as it was a year ago. The only reason the Cardinals finished 83-79 is because they had a really good record in one-run games, actually one of the best in the majors. And if they got leads, right, if the starting pitchers and the setup relievers or the middle relievers and the offense gave that late inning bullpen a lead, that late inning bullpen was fantastic. I still don't think it gets enough credit. They get enough credit for that. They were the best part of the team, and nothing else was even in the same universe. Let's go through this again really quick. Last season, when the Cardinals had a lead through 6 innings, they had a winning percentage of .841, 53-10. And that wasn't even all that great, but it's okay, right? But once they get through the 6th, where they may be a little shaky with either a starter or a middle reliever, the Cardinals last year had the 7th best winning percentage in the majors when they had a lead through 7 innings. They were 64-4, a .941 winning percentage. I mean, only 4 hiccups the entire season when you have a lead, only 4. You have the lead through 7. You ride that to victory 64 times. You only lose 4. That's a very impressive body of work right there. And again, 7th best in the majors in that category when you have a lead through 7 innings. And then with Helsley waiting in the 9th for save situations, the Cardinals were 69-1 last season when they had a lead through 8. Now, why is that? Well, I think his name is Ryan Helsley, right? Ryan Helsley, the Cardinals won 83 games last year. He had either a save or a win, because he had some wins in extra innings too. Either had a save or a win in 67% of their victories. He was a hugely important presence to any kind of late inning success they had, and they had outstanding late inning success as far as securing leads and riding it home for a win. So the Cardinals bullpen was one of the best in the majors. If you go by any number of things, top 10 for sure. I don't want to review all that because the people that would insist that they weren't all that good, they have no idea what the hell they were watching. So what's the point of even wasting more breath on this stuff? But, win probability added, which is my go-to for relievers and bullpens. One of the best in the majors last season. There's no question about it. Again, 64-4 when they lead through 7 and 69-1 when they led through 8. I mean, do we need to say anything more? I don't think I need to say anything more. But I will say this, right? You look at Ryan Helsley. Wow. I mean, he led the majors with 49 saves. He was 4th in wins above replacement. He was 4th among relievers in the majors in win probability added. He had 7 wins, and they weren't cheap wins. A couple were, but they weren't cheap wins. His ERA was 106 points, ERA plus, made him 106% better than league average. He struck out about 11 per 9 innings. He was equally tough on left-handed hitters and right-handed hitters. He got stronger as the year went on, which was a great sign, especially if you're looking to trade him. Is a situation where he had a 1.48 ERA in the second half compared to a 2.36 in the first half, and his strikeout rate went up after the All-Star break. If you look at what he did in saves last year, those 46 saves, 49 saves, pardon me, team record, he had a 1.29 ERA when getting those saves. And in save situations, it was an ERA under 2. Was great with runners in scoring position. He was just outstanding, right? He was just outstanding. So was Andrew Kittredge. Listen, he had some flaws, but you saw him in the 8th a lot, the 7th to the 8th, but a lot. And Kittredge was number 8 among relievers in shutdown innings. He only had 10 what they call meltdowns. That's a very low total. He was number 2 in the majors in holds, right? He was number 8 in appearances, in the top 27 in terms of innings pitched. So Ali Marmol had, Jojo Romero, he had Kittredge, and he had Helsley, but it was especially Kittredge and Helsley. And even though Kittredge was not effective against left-handed batters, even though he was not effective when pitching with runners in scoring position, overall, he was a plus reliever. And working in tandem, if you will, with Helsley, it gave the Cardinals a formidable combination at the end of games when they had a lead, even the slimmest of leads. All right, here's the go-to stat on this. Last season, in the 83 games that the Cardinals won, right? And you already remember the records I gave you about how great they were when they had a lead through 7 and a lead through 8. So in the 83 games that they won last season, I'm going to give you what Helsley and Kittredge combined for in those wins when they pitched in those wins, right? 115 and 2/3 innings, only 16 earned runs all season. That's a 1.24 ERA. That's 116 relief appearances. A 1.24 ERA when in those 83 wins that the Cardinals had, those two working together. With Kittredge getting the big, huge hold total, which leads to the 9th. And then you had the guy that clearly was the best National League closer last year, and if not the best overall in the top 3 last season. So before we start talking about, well, the Cardinals can do this, but boy, they might be pretty good with that, and they might surprise us, and I'm looking forward to it because they're not going to be awful. You take those 2 guys out of that bullpen, and Kittredge is as good as gone, and I still expect that they'll trade Helsley. And John Mozeliak told my friend Tom Ackerman at KMOX on Sunday on the weekly radio hit that he does on Sports on a Sunday morning. Shout out to KMOX, and yeah, I work for them now. So yeah, shout out indeed. Mo said they've been getting a lot of calls on their bullpen. Now listen, we know those calls are coming in primarily about one guy, right? The guy that the Cardinals have let it be known is available, and that's Ryan Helsley. And they expect, if they're going to trade him, they expect to be compensated accordingly with the return of talent. But he said, yeah, we're getting a lot of calls. So I still think I'd be surprised if Helsley's still here. But my point is, there's some things about the Cardinals going forward that I identified and we like. There's some things, okay, all right. It may not be that bad. It might be, better than we think. And if for a transition or / rebuilding reset year, it could build a bridge to 2026, and it could build a bridge to 2026. But the point being, we're taking for granted how incredible that bullpen was last year about protecting tiny leads late in games. They did it as well as just about any team in baseball. And even though, Ryan Fernandez has got a lot of talent, there's some other relievers you kind of like. Matthew Liberatore could play a major role, a more important role, a more valuable role. You don't have one of the best 8th inning guys, Kittredge, and you probably won't have Helsley. And once again, in their 83 wins, those two guys in 116 appearances combined had a 1.24 ERA. You take that out of your bullpen, and all those games that you were winning late or holding on to wins late, how many of them are going to go the opposite way? Maybe they can limit the damage, but I'm just saying it is not the same. It would not be the same. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I just don't hear much discussion about it. The cause and effect, the fact that their bullpen was so excellent last season at protecting late leads. But the two guys most responsible for that, in all likelihood, are gone. And that changes a lot. A lot. So, ain't trying to bum anybody out, but as always, I like to kind of speak candidly about these things. All right, I've gone on too long. Thank you for getting to it and staying with me. And I look forward to reading your comments. Until next time, take care, my friends.